Good evening. On behalf of the Abingdon, Virginia Town Council, I'd like to welcome everyone to the March 4th, 2013 council meeting. There's a couple of preliminaries that I would like to mention to everybody, one of which is that our town council receives a considerable package of materials in preparation for the meeting. There is on the table to my left a package of those materials. If anyone here wishes to look at that, it is available. We'd ask that you share it with others if need be. Also, I would ask if you have any cell phones with you this evening, if you turn them off. I'm usually the biggest culprit right there myself, and I have remembered to turn it off myself tonight, so please do the same. Also, we are pleased with the number of visitors that we have with us this evening, but I would take this opportunity to note the absence of one person who was a regular attendee of our council meeting for many, many years, and that was Miss Betty Ferrier. And Miss Ferrier served the community in a lot of different ways over the years. Most recently, she was a member of the Abingdon, Virginia Housing Authority, but Betty was keenly interested in the town as a whole with her community over in the Kings Mountain area, and made many contributions to the life and quality of life here in our community. And we note and regret her passing. And I hope that y'all remember her and her families in your thoughts and prayers. That being said, I would ask our clerk, Ms. Rosenbaum, to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard.
Here.
Mr. Humphreys.
Here.
Mr. Berry.
Here.
Mrs. Lowe.
Here.
Mayor Morgan.
Here.
And let the record reflect that all 5 council members are present.
Okay, thank you. And Bob Howard, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We have recognition this evening of several employees who've been with our town for a long and extended period and contributed much to the life of our community. And I'll ask Mr. Kelly, our town manager, to take us through that, please.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, and members of the public, it's always nice when I get to stand up here and recognize employees for their service to the community, and they do a tremendous job. And even those who are not recognized tonight, we have many employees that work for the town, and I like to think that they all do a tremendous job in the roles that they perform. We have 2 sets of awards that I'd like to present tonight. The first are Employee Service Awards, and I believe we have a couple of individuals who will not be present tonight, but as I call your name off, if you are here, please come forward, and if you'll just stand in front of the council podium there. I've got a nice little plaque for you, and I'll say a little thing about you as you come up. But the first employee is.
I'll write that down for you, Billy.
First employee is Jason Austin with the Abingdon Police Department. He's an investigator, and he's been with the town of Abingdon now has survived for 5 years. So, right. Jason, good job. I'm going to call out a couple of them. I'm going to have to hold my tongue here on a couple of them. But the next one is John Krieger. And John has been a truck driver for the sewer department for 25 years now with the town of Abingdon.
Wow.
You're not that old, are you?
I don't believe that Clyde Wise is here. Is Clyde here, or Margaret Plummer? Either one. I will announce to the public and to the council that both Clyde, who is a maintenance and grounds worker at the wastewater treatment plant, has been here for 5 years, as has Margaret Plummer, who works the front desk at the Coon Center. And last but not least, and it's not very often, I've been pretty fortunate to be able to give out some of the awards for longevity like this, but I would like to call Bill Snodgrass forward, and Bill is our patrol division supervisor with the police department, and Bill has been here for 35 years, which is quite an accomplishment. Now, what I was going to say earlier, and everybody sort of chuckled about, is I know a lot more about two of them than I know the third one, and that's John and Bill. And I'm not going to say anything about you all if you all won't say anything about me. Other than I'm glad that you're both still here with the town of Abingdon. You've done a great and an outstanding job for all the years that you've been here. And Jason, I know that you've got a long career ahead of you, and we look forward to seeing you back here when you get your 10-year plaque as well. So with that in mind, I want everyone, before I hand out the plaques, to give a nice round of applause.
Were you talking about the plaques or?
They do get bigger. 5 and out, man. 5 and out.
It's stuck in the middle now.
Could we all pull in a little closer here in a bit?
Look at me on the floor.
All right.
One more. We got to take one more.
Always going again.
We're gonna get one more, so I'm not so close on Greg.
Yeah, congratulations. Thank you. Hey, I can try to make the same deal that Greg did, and I won't tell you.
I know where you're coming from.
Mr. Mayor, if I might, at this time, I'd like to ask Bill Snodgrass and I believe Frankie Fulton to come forward, and they have a presentation to actually give to the town.
Whoa. Now, that's a change.
As y'all know, we've been teaching defensive driving to the town, and we completed our 90% for last year, and we received this plaque in Richmond last month for recognition to the town for our achievement, and I'd like to present it to Greg for the town.
Now I have to ask Mr. Fulton if he received that award for driving a sleigh and reindeer. Was that?
Now, is Keith here? We also have another certified instructor, Keith Linkus, from the Parks and Rec Department, who couldn't be here tonight.
This way.
You see me all right, Floyd?
He thought that camera was out of focus for a while.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Thank you.
It's nice.
That it is.
It's in our trophy case.
All right, Mr. Mayor, I'm still not through.
Okay, that's fine.
Long evening. Once a year, the town of Abingdon department heads get together and they analyze all of the full-time employees for the town to determine who should be recognized for their outstanding achievements in each of the departments. And the one thing that I will tell everyone is that the department heads generally are the ones who make the nominations for Employees of the Year and Outstanding Employees of the Year. And you would probably naturally think that somebody from the police department may nominate a police officer, or somebody from Parks and Rec would nominate someone from Parks and Rec. But we have found, since we've been doing this for the last 4 years, that there's a lot of cross nominations that go on among the various departments. So it's a very objective process that we go through. And once the department heads make the nominations, generally the council appointees, myself included, and Cecile and Deb and Garrett, we get together, and Jim Coward, he's not an appointee, but he's a department of one, so we figure he's pretty unbiased in the decisions. And we get together and we tally up the nominations, and then we make some independent judgments on our own and recommendations to come up with who we think are Employees of the Year and Outstanding Employees of the Year. There are several people that don't make this list. It's not to mean that they're bad in any regard, but they will eventually make this list, because I've seen people who have been nominated 1 or 2 years and then they wind up getting it in the 3rd or the 4th year. So the people who tend to be coming forward in the nomination process stick out year in and year out. So regarding the Employees of the Year, these are individuals that we will recognize by providing them with a plaque, and also with a paid vacation day in addition to the plaque, and then their name will get listed on the plaque outside of the council chambers at some point in time in the near future. But I have 2 Employees of the Year this year, and that is, as I call your name, if you come forward, Christopher Lett. Is Chris here? And Chris is a maintenance supervisor at the wastewater facility here in town. He's been employed by the town of Abingdon for 5 years, began back in January of 2007. He's been in a supervisory position there at the plant for 1 year. He's a certified electrician, and his knowledge and skills have saved the plant valuable time and money in repairs and maintenance over the past several years. And anytime you see Chris, he's always got something good to say, and he's always eager and willing to do his job. So congratulations, Chris, on being one of the Employees of the Year. The next Employee of the Year is Daniel Kidd. Daniel is a network administrator for the Information Technology Department. Daniel actually started out as a part-time employee with the town of Abingdon while he was in college, and later became a full-time employee in June of 2010, when we figured out that we had quite an asset on our hands, as he helped us work through all the quirks in our computer network process. Daniel's always very pleasant. He has a great attitude about his job, and he tries very hard to work on problems after hours, on the weekends if needed. He's very knowledgeable in his field, and he makes all employees that he works with feel very comfortable about asking questions. I never heard anybody say the first bad thing about Daniel or Christopher for that matter. So congratulations to you too, Daniel.
Come here, you gotta shake hands or something.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good to meet you.
Thank you.
I'm still here.
Okay, that's fine.
And last but not least, we have a higher level of recognition, which is referred to as Outstanding Employees of the Year. And we have two of those individuals that we would like to recognize tonight. The first of those is Miss Leanne Hunter. And Leanne is the superintendent at the Muster Grounds site. She too, like Daniel, started out working part-time for us and became full-time in July of 2012. I would be remiss if I didn't point out that one of the first tasks that Leanne had to do was to help develop and plan the National Park Service Conference for Abingdon within the first month after she became employed by the town. She has 4 certifications from the National Park Service. She is a facility manager, a park ranger, an interpreter, and a natural and cultural resources steward. She oversees the scheduling of over 2,700 students for the Call to Arm programs that occurs at the Muster Grounds each September. Leanne always has a positive attitude, requires minimal supervision, and she is often seen cleaning up debris around the Muster Ground site. And I might add that she does not mind getting in the mud and getting her hands dirty. She is definitely a true asset to the town of Abingdon. So, congratulations. Oh, yes, I almost forgot. Thank you, Susan. Leanne is also the individual who painted our wolf cub that we took to Abingdon, England, and presented to them. It was of the town crier. So they were very appreciative, and they have it on display over there. So she's a very gifted artist as well. The second and last Outstanding Employee of the Year for this year is Tammy Montgomery. And Tammy is a cashier in the finance department. She's worked for the town of Abingdon since October of 2007. Tammy has a talent for everything from problem solving. She gets to work with the public virtually every day, and she does an outstanding job through her enthusiastic and genuinely friendly manner that she has. She goes over and beyond her normal call to job duties, and in addition, she has assumed some other duties in our payroll department, helping out Miss Lambert and getting to know that system, which is a very in-depth and difficult process to learn. She's a breath of fresh air to the town hall, to anybody who comes through the doors out there. You always see her with a smile on her face, and she's always got kind and nice things to say. So please join me in congratulating Tammy McGrath.
She's got a pretty good daughter too, doesn't she?
Yeah, she has a pretty good daughter back there who, when she shows up to work. I would also like to point out that in addition to the plaque that they will get their names to, will go on a plaque out in the main hall, and in addition they will get a paid days off, and they will get a $500 CD from the town.
Very good.
Down more today, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
it's very nice to see the number of, it's very nice to see the number of people that we had recognized, but also the range of departments that were recognized, and it's a good thing to know that we have such capable and competent and enthusiastic employees in all of our town departments. And thanks to, first of all, to the employees, and secondly, to all of our staff who worked on making this recognition possible. That brings us to something a little less exciting, which is the approval of minutes. And council, we have for your consideration the minutes for the February 4th, 2013 work session meeting, the regular meeting that was held that same day, and then the work session minutes from February the 20th, 2013. Are there any corrections or additions to be noted?
Mr. Mayor, on the February 20th, 2013 minutes, item 3 at the end of the final sentence, I would like to make the correction that it reads, stipulate as long as the extra revenue is identified in a separate line item.
Okay, was that, I
That
guess,
was
the
part
nature
of
of the
it.
discussion that we had at that time? All right, any other corrections or additions, changes? What's your pleasure, council?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we approve all 3 and the one as modified.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes with the changes that were noted. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Barry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, under petitions, public hearings, and first reading of ordinances, we have for our consideration the first reading of an ordinance of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, to repeal, amend, and reenact Chapter 58, Solid Waste, Article 2, Storage and Collection, Division 1, Generally, Division 2, Town Collection, and Division 3, Containers, Sections 58 through 26 through 5873 of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia. Mr. John D., would you care to speak to us regarding this matter?
I'd be glad to, Mr. Mayor, members of council. This ordinance revision is meant to bring the ordinance up to date with the current service that we provide as far as solid waste collection. It also includes all the bulky rubbish and larger item pickups, brush collection, recycling, and so forth. And if there are any questions or further discussion, I'd be glad to address them, but that was the purpose of this revision.
Okay. I know, council, from time to time, we've been looking at this for a number of months, really, and council members, or a number of us, have had questions and concerns, and I guess we have further concerns that we need to address about this, or are we ready to take some action on it?
I'm fine with it, Mr. Mayor. There's a special exception in here that gives the town manager the authority to make changes in the policy, and that satisfies me.
Okay. All right. What is your pleasure regarding this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept or we approve the ordinance on the first reading as presented.
Okay, is there
Second.
a second? We have a motion and a second to approve the ordinance as presented on the first reading. And any further discussion? Mr. Kelly?
Mr. Mayor, if council would be so inclined, since we have been reviewing this matter for, I believe we calculated 12 months, if council would be inclined to dispense with the second reading, I think that would be appropriate.
Okay, would you care to amend your motion?
I will amend the motion to dispense with the second reading.
Would you
Second.
amend your second? Okay, we have amended the motion to approve this as presented on the first reading and to dispense with the second reading, and that is assuming that this is enacted unanimously by the council. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Barry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you
Thank you.
very much. And see, Mr. Dew, nobody's beating you up so far this evening.
Hair's getting a little darker right now.
And thank you very much, Mr. Dew, for you and all the other members of our town staff that worked very long and patiently to help us craft a what is hopefully a significant improvement to our ordinance and one that we can all get behind. That brings us to a public hearing to receive comments from the public regarding a bond issuance for borrowing of funding for the purchase of 2 new town trolleys. Mr. Kelly, would you care to introduce this to us, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you will recall, several months ago, I went to Kannapolis, North Carolina, to view some possible new trolleys. They're not brand new, but they're about 5 or 6 years old. And at that time, council directed me to move forward with the acquisition of those trolleys. I noted in the budget message to you during the current calendar year that my plan for purchasing the trolleys would be to finance them over a 3 to 5 year period of time. And as such, we have put this out for a bond issue to the local banks in Abingdon after we initially priced it in North Carolina where the trolleys were. We did obtain four bids, which are in your council packet. First Bank and Trust was a 4% bid for 3 years, 4.5 for 5 years. New People's Bank was 3.65% for 3 years, 3.9 for 5 years. BB&T was 1.69 for 3, 1.95 for 5, and Grundy National was 1.75 for 3 and 2.25 for 5. Accordingly, I would recommend to the council that the council accept the financing option from BB&T for the 3-year period of time, and you will note that I've attached an addendum letter from BB&T, and the rate has actually decreased to 1.6%. And I would like for council to, upon hearing public comments, I would recommend that council authorize me to proceed with financing the trolleys through BB&T for a 3-year period of time.
Okay, and just to bring everybody up to speed, so to speak, we, at our previous meeting, authorized the purchase of these trolleys and for you to enter into the agreement for the purchase of them, and they'll basically be used as part of our tourism-related activities and providing transportation for groups and programs as required. Is that correct?
That is correct, and the purchase price for both of, I neglected to indicate the purchase price for both of them with the, we had some bike racks and what have you added on, would be total of $160,000.
Okay. So again, we previously authorized the purchase, and at this point in time, we're having a public hearing regarding the actual financing. Okay, that is the nature of what our hearing will be on this evening. Again, whether or not we should go ahead with the recommended purchase through the BB&T to finance the trolleys. At this time, I will declare the public hearing to be open, and if there is anyone present at this time who wishes to address the council regarding this matter, they're welcome to come forward at the present time. Again, if there is anyone who wishes to address the council regarding this matter, they are welcome to come forward and do so at the present time. I do not see anyone who wishes to address the council at this point in time. I will therefore declare the public hearing to be closed. Mr. Kelly's made a recommendation that we finance these trolleys through BB&T at the proposed rate of, was that 1.6% for 3 years?
Yes.
Okay, council, what is your pleasure regarding this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I would move that we accept Mr. Kelly's recommendation for the purchase of 2 trolleys at $160,000 to at 1.6% for 3 years from BB&T.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to purchase the trolleys through financing from BB&T at 1.6% for 3 years. Is there any question or further comment about this? Okay, again, we have the motion and the second. No further discussion. Would you call the roll, please?
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you. We have no second readings of ordinances this evening or any bids for our consideration. That brings us to reports from the town manager. And at this point in time, we have the consideration of an appeal from Kroger Mid-Atlantic relative to a certificate of appropriateness for the location of the Kroger Fuel Center at 480 Cummings Street and restriction of delivery times for large trucks hauling fuel to the center that I believe was established by the Planning Commission. We have with us this evening Mr. Chad Messer, real estate specialist from Kroger Mid-Atlantic. Mr. Garrett Jackson is here, and I'll call him Mr. Jackson first, please, if you'll come forward and lead us through this.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, at the January 28th Planning Commission meeting, the Planning Commission, there were 4 members present at that time, heard a request from Kroger to reconsider some stipulations that were put on conditions of approval for the previous site plan. You'll recall a site plan for Shoney's redevelopment was approved in late 2011, early 2012. In July of last year, Kroger Mid-Atlantic staff, Chad Messer being one of them, visited with town staff, myself, Mr. Dew, and some of the building inspectors to discuss the possibility of a Kroger fueling station going on the same property. In November, December of last year, that site plan that was previously approved with Shoney's was modified to include that Kroger site plan. Planning Commission did review it. There were several discussions about safety, about turning radiuses, and the room on the lot. Was there space enough for a gas station, and so on. And it was eventually approved, with the condition of approval being delivery times only from 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. That being the delivery times of fuel to the site to refuel the tanks. Kroger requested a variance or requested that those restrictions be lifted because of the timing. They would only be open during the sort of somewhat normal business working hours, 7 a.m. to 7 a.m. correct, Chad? 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. So that those delivery hours would conflict with when they would have someone on site. They requested at the January meeting an alternative, which was no delivery times between 6 a.m. and 9 p.m. 7 a.m. Was it 7? 7 a.m. Excuse me. 7 a.m. and 9 a.m. and then in the afternoons 3 p.m. to 7 p.m. There was one other option thrown out at that Planning Commission meeting, and that was a lunch prohibition of 11 to 1, as sort of further along their case. Planning Commission at that time voted. There were 2 in favor of the variance and 2 in opposition to the variance. So with the tie vote, it squashed it. Kroger appealed by letter to the town clerk and the town manager to come to town council and request that those restrictions be lifted. It was an appeal of the Planning Commission's decision. This is something we've discussed with Kroger's quite often, and we met today with Kroger and their attorney, and I'll let Mr. Kelly further my discussion. But this thing's been before Planning Commission, I think, 3 times, so it's something that's been tossed around quite a bit, and a lot of thought's been put into it.
So, and let me just ask one question before Mr. Kelly starts. Is this the property that the town vacated the right-of-way in order for the construction of Shoney's and all that?
The retaining wall.
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, the only thing I would add at this moment is that from my perspective, being on the Planning Commission at the time, that the motion which I made was made, it was felt like that restricting to those time periods would be the safest method of delivery when traffic would be at its lowest level. We have met with, and I'll let them speak for themselves. We met with David Hutton, the attorney representing Kroger, and two of the representatives from Kroger earlier today. I believe that they have an alternate proposal from what was actually sent to me in terms of the appeal relative to the times when they would actually be willing not to have deliveries take place. But I'll let them speak to that at the appropriate time.
Okay, now I'm a little unclear exactly on how to, proceed under these circumstances, because I really don't think we've had anything like this for some time. But I believe what would be appropriate at this point would be to have either Mr. Hutton or the representative of their choice come forward and really present your request for an appeal and, the various alternatives that you have. And if you'll come forward at the present time.
Mayor, members of the council, I'm David Hutton, attorney here in town. I've been retained by Kroger to present their position with respect to the appeal. I do have with me tonight, though, Chad Messer, who's seated back here, and Kurt Wallerburn, who's also with Kroger, although today is his first day, so he's sort of observing. He's not going to be able to answer any of your questions, but if there are any questions that you have that I can't answer, Mr. Messer is here, and I will defer to him to let him answer those questions. And there may be some. But I think, Kroger's position with respect to this matter is this, and I'll try to make it very simple. The fuel part of their business has become a bigger and bigger part of their business. And they, like Food City, have fuel incentives. If you buy so much grocery, you get an incentive on your gas price, or you get some knockdown on the price per gallon of your gas, depending on how many points. And I don't know the exact system, but it's very similar to what Food City does. And their fuel sales have become a bigger part of their business. The store in Abingdon's been here in that location, I think since 1979, we determined, and Kroger has been in this town, I think, since 1948 maybe, or 49.
Mr. Kelly, what year was it you were bagging groceries?
We went down that road today.
We did.
Yes, I was there from 78 to about 84.
Very good. Okay.
So the Kroger has been a big part of the town for a long time, and they've had some over the years. I think a lot of their customers have questioned, how do we redeem these Kroger gas things when there's no gas station here? We have to go to Bristol, I think, is the closest one. So Kroger would like to put a fuel station in the town, and that's why they approached the town when the Shoney's development started. They contacted them. I think they made accommodations to give them enough room to put this fuel center in. There's not enough room in the Kroger, that shopping center parking lot. The parking lot has been narrowed by the widening of Cummings Street over the years, and there's just simply not enough room to put it in there. Shoney's was the closest location that made sense for Kroger, so that's why they're here. Putting the fuel station in is a big part of their development plans for Kroger overall in Abingdon. They're considering another major renovation to the Kroger store that they're looking at, and as I understand it, the ability of Kroger to locate a fuel station in Abingdon, and at this point at the Shoney's location, is something that will be part of the consideration when they're stacking their stores as to which ones get renovation and which ones don't. They're making a significant investment, over $1 million, to put the station in. Their investment in renovation will be also very significant, and so they want to be a part of the town. The restriction that was placed on the approval of the site permit that they only be allowed delivery from 11 p.m. or 10 p.m., to 6 a.m. is something that Kroger simply does not think will work for them. And the reason, there's two reasons, primary reasons. One is that their intended hours of operation, as Mr. Dew indicated, or Mr. Jackson, excuse me, indicated, is from 6 a.m. All right. 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. I keep wanting to say 7, but 6 a.m. to 11 p.m. So they will only have an employee on site during those hours, and they do not want to have fuel deliveries without an employee on site. Someone who can be there, be sure it's done properly, if there's any problems, can deal in the appropriate way with problems with fuel delivery. And the second reason, and maybe the more important one, although they're both important, is that Kroger anticipates that they will generally need one fuel delivery per day on the average. They won't, if they have a slow day, they may not need a fuel delivery the next day. But they also anticipate that there may be days that they will need more than one. They may need 2 deliveries. Their anticipation is that may be on weekends when they may have more volume of people in the gas station. But if they realize they need a second delivery or an early delivery on a day after they didn't require a delivery, and they can't get fuel in until after 10 p.m., and they run out at 4 o'clock in the afternoon or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, it's not a good business scenario for Kroger to have a gas station where people pull in and they don't have fuel. And that's, I think, one of their biggest concerns. And that's why they asked for the variance. And what they asked the Planning Commission to do was restrict deliveries between 7 a.m. in the morning and 9 a.m. in the morning, and between 3 p.m. and 7 p.m., the 2 rush hour kinds of times that you would anticipate, and I think all of us who travel out there, and we all do, know they're probably the 2 busiest times. That's what they asked the Planning Commission to consider. They thought that was a reasonable compromise. They recognized the concerns that the Planning Commission has. They recognized the concerns that the council has about safety and traffic on Cummings Street and all the issues that go with it. But as a practical matter, the site plan has been approved. They can put a station in there, and all we're talking about in reality, as we stand here, is 1 fuel delivery a day, maybe 2, of additional traffic. I mean, if they open it and they somehow figure out how to deal with the fuel issue under the current restrictions, which they don't think they can do, you would still have the issues of traffic turning left into the Shoney's, the Kroger fuel facility. You're going to have that, but that's something that exists at this point. I think, Kroger believed before the Planning Commission that their proposal was reasonable, but I think if necessary to get this approved and get some modification to the restrictions, I think Kroger is willing at this point, and will tell you tonight, that they would accept a further restriction on their delivery to restrict not allowed deliveries between 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., which would cover the lunch hour traffic, because there is, I think, increased traffic on Cummings Street during the lunch hour. I don't think there's any question about that. So what that would do would be allow them to have deliveries in the morning if they need to for a 2-hour period between 9 and 11. It would allow them to have deliveries in the afternoon if they need it for a 2-hour period between 1 and 3. And it will allow them to have deliveries, again, their proposal was to cut it off in the evenings at 7 p.m. from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. They think they can work with that. And that is something they can do. They really do not think they can operate this business if they're restricted to deliveries 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. They just don't think that they can operate under that model. So we're here this evening asking the council to consider, I guess we're conceding that we're asking the council to consider what they initially proposed to the Planning Commission, but if you think it would be appropriate to also restrict deliveries of fuel trucks between the hours of 11 a.m. and 1 p.m., if that would satisfy the concerns of the members of the council to make that modification to the conditions that have been put on their site plan approval, I think they'd be satisfied with that, and that's what we're asking this council to do tonight. And we'd be glad to answer any questions any of you have. As I said, to the extent I can, I will. To the extent I need Mr. Musser, I'll ask him.
I don't have a question for you yet, Mr. Hutton, but Mr. Jackson, would you just, for the record, tell the council and the audience why Kroger's had to apply for a variance?
Why they had to apply for a variance? They were
Because the site plan was already approved.
the site plan was approved, and conditions of approval were put upon that site plan. That was the 10 p.m. to 6 a.m. restriction on fuel delivery, and so they requested that the conditions of approval be relieved or modified.
Now, council, does anyone at the present time have any questions of Mr. Hutton or any of the gentlemen from Kroger's?
Go ahead, Jason.
Just one logistical, we've seen the site plan about a week or so ago, and just for my clarification and visualing the logistics, I guess is the way to put it, is there enough room for an 18-wheeler to make a complete turn around the station as it goes in and comes out, or will it have to drive in and back out onto Cummings Street?
Our site designer takes that into consideration, and there's enough room.
Okay, thank you.
Felt like there was, but
Well, it looked like it, but I didn't want to say, in my mind, I want to make sure. Thank you.
And I have a question for Mr. Messer, because I would say he knows this. When you did your traffic count to see these times, the 7 to 9 and the 1 to 11 to 1, and then the one at 3 to 7, when you did your traffic study, what did it say about the numbers that you had coming through there at that time versus the rest of the day?
We did not do a traffic study. That was just something we offered up
Okay.
as an alternative.
Thank you.
Would you be receptive to doing a traffic study?
There is an added cost to the traffic study, so we'd prefer not to, but if that's a condition of approval, I guess we'll have to evaluate that.
Well, I'll speak just briefly. I know that the Planning Commission approved this request, and I'll have to say, I'll have to acknowledge it here publicly. I am a Kroger customer, and I'm quite a regular there, actually, although I try to remember Food City as well. But, the reality of it is that a lot of folks, when they find out that this has been is going to happen, and we understand that the site was approved for this, it was a legal activity by right to have happen on Cummings Street. There's going to be a lot of folks that are really concerned about this, given the level of accidents and problems and traffic issues that we have on Cummings Street. There is going to be a considerable public hue and cry over this. And we certainly recognize the value to the community of the $1 million investment that's being proposed and the renovations that are going to be proposed there. But there's still going to be a lot of concern about it. And likewise, as a council, we have to be, our first priority has to be providing for public safety. So I personally value the ability to make what I consider to be an informed decision based on empirical data that might have been gathered for this purpose.
Sure.
Others? Does anybody else have questions or comments or concerns?
When this, I want to go back to the subdivision of the property. When the property was subdivided, it is not subdivided, so that.
They would be
we were
leasing off
mistaken.
of the Shoney's owner, correct?
Yes, we would be leasing from the owner of the property.
Okay, so you didn't purchase that property, you're leasing from
No.
Shoney's. I see. Okay.
Others? Mr. Howard, any questions, comments?
No, I guess the reason I voted not to, against these restrictions here, that I think that Greg made the motion to restrict it during the night. I know it's a gasoline truck, but I also know that there's several tractor-trailer trucks coming into Kroger's on a daily basis. Several, probably 10 to 12 a day, according to the manager over there. I don't really see this being a big issue. That's my opinion, but I do see that, I do respect other members' opinions. I think the restrictions they've given us here, these are the peak times of traffic. And I think we need to go ahead and approve it based with these times.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I agree with Mr. Howard that these might be the peak times. I don't think that any of us on this board are knowledgeable enough to know that those are the peak times. Very well may be. It might be proven
Just
out.
personal observation.
I know, I understand, I understand.
Yeah.
But, you know, I can tell you that I don't know, as well as I don't know that the 10 o'clock to 6 o'clock a.m., you know, would be a good thing either. I'm not sure either one of them is good. But I think that having the data, as you stated, would help us make an informed decision. And as a council, I think that that's imperative that we do make the most informed decision we can, not a decision that we make by our personal observations, but when we can back up with data.
All right, council, we have, we've know what our planning commission approved, and we know what has been recommended, or been requested by the folks from Kroger and their attorney. What is your pleasure regarding this matter?
Let me ask one more question. So,
Always ask to-
Mr. Hutton or Mr. Messer, you're telling us that Kroger would be willing to restrict delivery times from 7 to 9, 11 to 1, and 3 to 7. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we accept those restriction times and approve the variance.
Second.
Can I do a substitute motion?
We have a motion for our consideration to approve those times as, presented, which would be basically that fuel deliveries would be permitted on that site from between 9 and 11 o'clock a.m., between 1 and 3 o'clock p.m., between 7 and 11 p.m., in the evenings. And that's based under the assumption that there would not be 24-hour service there. That would be, the stores would be closed from 11 o'clock p.m. until 6 o'clock a.m.
I like that. And may I offer, may I offer a substitute motion, please?
Well, I'm not sure if that
We'll have
is
to get a Robert's Rule of Order.
Yeah, very likely.
So substitute motions.
I'll tell you what, I will allow you to offer it and see if anyone is interested in modifying their motion at the present time.
I'll have to withdraw my motion.
Okay.
But what,
That's fine.
let's talk about, let's do it in
It's on the
discussion.
table,
It's on the
so
table, so
Okay.
we can discuss it.
Okay. Well, it's on the table, and what I would do is I would move the council require that a traffic study be completed by Kroger first for the area in and around I-81, exit 17, and all of Cumming Street to the point of the intersection with Main Street, and further results of the study be presented to the town prior to a discussion being made concerning this appeal.
I'm not willing to withdraw my motion for that,
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Okay. We have a motion on the table as presented. Is there any further discussion about it?
I would just say, Mr. Mayor, I agree with Mr. Howard. I think with the restrictions that Kroger's has offered up, my observation is I think it is the peak time of travel at Cumming Street, although I will acknowledge, and I think probably Chief Sullivan back there probably could verify at some level, that Cumming Street is I'll call it the most dangerous street, if you will, in the sense of traffic accidents in the town. But, what, no?
Well, we know.
Uh,
We can't ask him to.
Oh.
You can ask Mr.
Oh,
Sullivan.
is that, it's one of our most active streets? Is that a true assessment or observation? I don't mean to set you up.
Certainly, it's one of the most active streets, and so is West Main Street. In fact, if you want to talk about accident frequency, you're going to be talking about Cummings Street, and you're also going to be talking about West Main Street. John Dew and I actually did an accident study 4 years ago? 5 years ago? The data hasn't changed. I think one of the, I've been here almost 12 years, and between Cook Street and Main Street, I could probably count on at least fingers and toes how many wrecks have been there, and one of them was my wife. Now, the section of Cummings Street where we have all the crashes is between Cook Street and the bridge. Also, when you talk about peak traffic times, you know, you don't really have to have a traffic study. 7 in the morning to 9 a.m., 3 p.m. to 6 p.m. After about 6:30, that street dies. The traffic's flow traffic. You know, and I can produce numbers to show you where the crashes occur. I send you a monthly report with where the crashes are occurring. The issue that you're concerned about is a valid concern. However, I don't have any crash data that says you're having crashes in that block that will be affected by anything other than what's going on already right now, because Kroger's already has trucks, Aaron's already has trucks coming in. So I don't really see that this is going to make a huge difference in the number of crashes as the road currently sits. If that helps, or muddies water, whichever one.
You mentioned one thing of interest to me, which was that you felt like from 6:30 onward, there's very little that happens there on that street. And I wondered if that, say 6:30 to.
That restriction's in this motion.
I'm sorry.
That restriction is in this motion.
Okay.
Their delivery times are they are not to deliver from 7 to 9, 11 to 1, and 3 to 7.
Okay.
It seems like there's a lot of people over Shoney's at 8 o'clock, but maybe I'm wrong, nobody's there. So,
Okay, Council.
Thank you, Chief.
We have a motion and a second on the floor, and we've considered the possibility of a modified motion. Is there any further discussion on this matter?
Call question.
Okay, and that means we will end the debate, and here nobody wishes to debate it any further. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
no.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
No. Okay, and the motion is passed, and we thank you for your consideration. I'll note that my negative vote for the record was essentially that I feel that despite the fact we probably have a good feel for this, that it's important when we have developments like this to do traffic studies as a routine part of the approval process. But, you know, we thank you for your investment here. I hope it'll all work out well
Mr.
for
Mayor,
everybody. Yes,
and
sir.
that is my reservation, that we need cold, hard facts, not gut, people's guts that they want to do this, and which is great. I mean, you've got it done. I just want to go to funerals of my neighbors.
Okay.
So, thank you.
All right, very good. And we thank you. Thank you for coming here and being with us this
I
evening.
will call you if there are some.
Okay, our next item is a presentation of the town of Abingdon, the annual tree report and the Abingdon Tree Initiative. I believe Mr. Sigmund is with us this evening.
Mr. Mayor, members of Town Council, it's always an honor to stand before you again, give my annual State of the Trees report. I've been told not to get too close to this thing here, simply because I really truly don't need it. We've got sensitive ears back there on the back row.
Well, generally, they can't hear us from this side.
Like I said, it is an honor to be with y'all again this year, and it is always an honor to be able to serve you guys as your town arborist. I do want to highlight the proceedings that have gone on in the past year. There with our trees here within the town. I've got those highlighted for you, and you should have those in your packet. Of course, first and foremost, as always, is our Tree City USA designation. We continue to be that. We had our Arbor Day celebration at D.B. Stanley this past year and went off very well. I appreciate Ms. Lowe being in there to be able to fill in for you, Mr. Mayor, and I was very appreciative of that. Very good time, and it's always good. So we're glad to do that. Had a number of tree plantings this year at Fields Pen House, out of the muster grounds, Abingdon Post Office, there along Main Street, over at the Coombs Rec Center and Veterans Memorial Park. So we able to get a lot of trees in the ground, spread them out all over the town. Got some good trees in the ground. We're very excited about those. We had a very special project there at the municipal parking lot there in the middle. Being able to develop that, I appreciate the work that my supervisor, John Dew, provided me with this to get these good root zones in between the planting spaces, and I think that's a wonderful spot right there. And I know Paul Revel with the Department of Forestry was very pleased with that, and I think that will be a good model for future communities to look at. And so we've given him some data in terms of what the cost was for us, and so he's going to be able to use that for other communities. So that's certainly something as a good feather in our hat. We got our information signs in there at Veterans Memorial Park, and I know we're going to work on the exact things with the Virginia Tech trees. Give me time, I'll get to that.
Some of us never thought we'd live long enough to see those signs.
Hey,
but,
progress is progress.
It is progress.
Yes, that's
no
right.
doubt.
But that worked out very well. We've got our Main Street streetscape program up and running, and of course that will be completed this spring when we get the trees in. The planters are here already, and we're just waiting for the delivery of the trees to come in, and so that'll be occurring here soon. We also had a special project with the United Way, our Roots to Recovery program. There was a planting effort there along the Virginia Creeper Trail down there along by the golf course that was severely affected by the tornado, where we put in bare root seedlings out there, and then also we worked with them in terms of providing residents affected by the tornado. We came in with some containerized trees, and we did that not only for here in the town, but throughout the whole county. But I can tell you that the members down, the residents down there in Winterham and Country Club were able to benefit from that. And I will tell you that the United Way of Virginia Highlands, they did receive the ISA Gold Leaf Award for that project. And I'll also tell you that project is going to be ongoing. We're going to continue that. We're going to have our phase 2 with that. So that's certainly not a one and done kind of type thing. We had our major root invigoration of the large ash tree out there at Fields Pen House. We felt that was a well worth effort right there, and the tree is doing very well, and we're very grateful that we could do that. We've had our certified arborist class this past July over at the Higher Ed Center. We had 2 exams to go with that, and we've got a large number of people that took that, very well received. We were very grateful that we were able to bring in Joe Murray from Mountain Empire Community College to teach the class, and that went off very well. And we got some new certified arborists in our region around here, which is a very good thing. Had a number of speaking engagements at E.B. Stanley, Washington County Master Gardeners, and a VDOT training class up at Virginia Tech. So I was able to work with that. Continue to work with the Virginia Tech Urban Forestry Department with their Virginia Loves Trees license plate. What we're going to try to do there with that. Sales have not been what we wanted to do with this. And so Trees Virginia and the Virginia Tech Department of Urban Forestry, we're going to try to elicit some help with some marketing ideas to get this going, because we really want to see this take off. So the timber harvest behind the Wolf Creek Treatment Facility, that was completed this year. And I continue my association with the town of Marion, the Virginia Tech Department of Forestry Advisory Council, and Trees Virginia and Board of Directors, and as well as the MAC ISA Board of Directors, and also was able to assist a large number of property owners here in town and also out of town in terms of the care for their trees. So I certainly don't, when I'm working for the town, I try to limit those things to within the town, but of course, and with that other place that I work for, I'll fit those in over there with them. So it's not a problem there with that. Goals and objectives and goals for 2013. Want to continue, of course, the town to have its Tree City USA status. We'll be having another certified arborist training class there in mid-July. The exam on the 19th. We want to continue our emerald ash borer treatments for public and private trees. As a matter of fact, I'm now exploring some options for the town. Some mechanical equipment that's going to aid in this process to work, because right now everything is very labor intensive, and we're going to see if we can try to speed things up, because it's just I only have but so much time to be able to do this, and the borer is getting closer to us. It's not here yet. All those pheromone traps that were put out last year, there's no sign of the borer in this immediate area, but it's only a matter of time before it gets here. So we want to make sure we keep going with that. We've got new plantings slated for this year. Of course, the Main Street Streetscape project, we've got a number of trees slated over at the Coombs Rec Center, Veterans Park, and along Valley Street. We are talking with Paul Revel. We are contemplating another Emerald Ash Borer workshop for this coming summer here for Abingdon, because the one several years ago worked so well for us, was so well received, and there are some new things that are going on out there with that, and so we thought this might be something that might be beneficial for us. And so that's still very much so in the works. That's why I've got a question mark beside it. I'll skip over number 6 for a moment. Number 7, Cumming Street, the white pines down there on Cumming Street there across from the Shoney's. Those trees are starting to get hammered pretty hard with the storms and everything we've been having, and so really starting to become an issue in terms of safety for the vehicles and for pedestrian traffic down there. So one of the things we're going to start working with, and of course I am going to try to get input and collaboration with the Veterans Board of Directors, but try to come up with a landscape plan for that site right there, bringing in some more site-appropriate trees, shrubbery, something that'll be very attractive, and something that I think will be a much better fit for that site now that those trees are really starting to get large. They're starting to get a lot of storm damage in there, and I think it's time. Is what it boils down for those white pines, and so I think we can come up with something better. I know Tony's going to be very proud of it, and I think John's very happy to have that happen as well, just because of the street and the people up and down the street there with that. We're going to continue my Virginia Loves Trees license plate effort with the Department of Forestry, continue to be available to the town residents. And let me just bump back up here to number 6, the Abingdon Tree Initiative Planting Program. This is something that I have taken before the Tree Commission, and they have wholeheartedly endorsed. This is basically modeled after an organization up in Fredericksburg called Trees Fredericksburg, where they offer trees to private property owners to increase their urban tree canopy. And so when I got hold of this and found out what they were doing, I was trying to figure out what we could do to try to incorporate something like that, something similar to that down here for Abingdon. So in talking with the Tree Commission and getting their approval, what we are wanting to do here with this is to be able to target specific subdivisions each year, and so it's just not so widespread and just throwing darts at a dartboard, but target specific subdivisions each year, mailings, making them aware that they have available to them a tree that they could put back onto private property if need be. Close to the street. We prefer the tree will be planted close to the street so that the street can get full benefit of this. And the tree will be provided for them. The tree will be planted for them. Of course, care and maintenance, of course, comes after that. And so, but this is something that if they are so interested in this, I believe on your iPad you have the list of trees that has been approved, and you'll see I gave you one of these here. I just kind of slipped this up there before the meeting started. This is a booklet that my office developed several years ago there at the power company for our tree replacement program. And what we will want to do is just have it look very much like this. You look at your PowerPoint program and basically put this on for this, to where the people who are interested in this program, we can deliver this to them and let them have a decision in terms of what tree they would like to have planted back. Of course, I'll have to go over there and make sure the site's appropriate for the trees that they want to select. Are there power lines involved? What are their underground utilities? Anything along that line that could be an issue, so that we can make sure we got the right tree in the right place. What I would like to do later on is to be able to approach you guys and talk a little bit more at length about this at one of the department budgetary work sessions, and so we can get that going as well. But I just want to make you aware that's something that I think will be of great benefit to help Abingdon's urban tree canopy assessment. I believe we'll be able to use our iTree Eco reports in terms of making sure we can help target the areas that we can target the right areas for this. And so I think this is going to be a good program. And once again, I think this will be something that the town of Abingdon will be a leader for communities of our size in the state of Virginia, to be able to be proactive in terms of trying to increase and enhance our urban tree canopy. So, and just also want to let you know, Arbor Day celebration, that's coming up. We'll be at Abingdon Elementary this year. We do have a date for that. It's going to be Friday, April 12th. We would love to have you guys there. We don't have a specific time on it yet. The principal there hasn't given me a specific time on that, but I'm sure it'll be in the early afternoon as usual. we can get the celebration in time for the kids to be ready for the end of school. So we'd love to have you guys there for that. We'd love to have you, put it on your calendar where you can be a part of that. I can tell you that we are going to put another tree back there in the back where we did several years ago. Mr. Mayor, I believe you were there for that. We're going to put in a companion tree back there. They've got some more playground equipment back there, and so they're wanting the tree we put in there several years ago. They're wanting it to have a neighbor, so we'll get another one in there. So, and that's everything I've got. Any questions or anything? I'll be glad to entertain them.
I'll make one brief comment, and that is I'm very pleased about the first of all the work that the Tree Commission does and our efforts to increase our urban forest. I'm particularly pleased to hear about the Abingdon Tree Initiative. Would encourage you to look real hard at the Country Club Estates neighborhood and that watershed.
That's going to be the area I would like to hit on first.
Very good, sir. We do have a long-awaited stormwater remediation program in process over there, and increasing our urban forest canopy in those neighborhoods and certainly contribute to helping to solve the stormwater issues that we've had over there.
Very much so. Yes, sir.
Others have questions, comments? Thank you very much for being with us, and we do appreciate it.
Thank you, guys.
Okay,
Once
thank
again,
you.
You all prepared for the storm, right?
Yeah. All right.
We look forward
That
to
wasn't
meeting
a
with you
question.
guys.
Yes, I've had a request that we perhaps have a 10-minute recess. I don't think a motion is required. Okay, Madam Clerk, I'll declare us back in session. And that brings us, our next item is consideration of appropriation of funding for a sports complex study. Mr. Kelly, would you care to talk to us about that, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you will recall, we have, Mr. Dew and I have been in negotiations with Pennoni and Associates relative to entering into a contract which council has authorized. It has now reached the point that we need to have funding appropriated for that study. Based on the numbers that have been submitted by Pennoni and Associates, we did get them to break it down into 4 phases because there was a little bit of sticker shock, but at the same time, John and I both have never dealt with this particular type of study before, but it looks like a total of $84,155 for that study if we went through all 4 phases of the study. I believe they have indicated, although we do not have contractual documents at the current time, but they've indicated about a 3 to 4 month window of time to complete the study. So I am asking council to appropriate the funding, $84,155, and I would recommend that funding come from the funds that have previously been submitted to the council by the Washington County Board of Supervisors.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, or we have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve a contract with Pennoni and Associates to do a feasibility or sports complex feasibility study and an analysis for the town of Abingdon, and to finance it from funds that were previously provided by the Washington County Board of Supervisors for the use of sports programs in the town for that purpose. Is there any further discussion regarding this matter?
Mr. Mayor, could I ask the town manager to send a letter to the county administrator just letting her know that we're doing this with the funds they provided?
Sure.
All right.
Thanks.
Very good. Any further comment or discussion about this? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, thank you. And let's see, bear with me just a moment. My agenda seems to be slipping a little bit. I know I have another one up there, but I'm better off with one right here. And that brings us to consideration of an appropriation of additional funding for the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator. Mr. Kelly, again.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, Mr. Berry recently brought to my attention back in November that there was a discrepancy in the funding of the incubator between the two local governments who are partners in the incubator, that being Washington County and the town of Abingdon. And Washington County had appropriated $6,940 more than the town of Abingdon. In thinking back, and Jason and I discussed this, the reason that number was off was because the town of Abingdon reduced the non-departmental lines by 10% to everybody who received something. However, and probably should have given it more thought at the time, but however, the agreement between the town and the county is that we would share in those costs 50-50. So if that's what the county has submitted, which Mr. Berry has indicated, then I would request that the town appropriate $6,940 out of its contingency to bring that up to even par with Washington County.
You know what? I read that in the, I've got a, Mr. Berry's absolutely right. It is in the agreement that we have. And so I move that we appropriate the money to bring our funding matched with the counties.
Okay, is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Abstain, since I'm the director of the incubator.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Again, that brings us to consideration of an appropriation of funding for the Washington County Life Savings Crew Capital Outlay Project. Again, Mr. Kelly.
Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you will recall, this came up at a work session last month, and as it turned out, Washington County Life Saving Crew had a groundbreaking ceremony, I believe, for their expansion project prior to us being able to have a meeting. So with the help of Mr. Bailey and his staff back there, we were able to develop the big check that you all took to the county. However, that big check for $20,000 had an asterisk out from it that said subject to the formal approval of the town council. Council had indicated at the prior work session of its intent to appropriate that money at some time either this month or the following month. So accordingly, the $20,000 needs to be appropriated out of the council contingency.
I'll entertain a motion.
I so move.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve $20,000 from the council's contingency funds for the Washington County Life Savings Crew Capital Outlay Project. And I think all of us were able actually to attend that program there. It was a very nice turnout that they had for their groundbreaking, and we were pleased to acknowledge the important, the essential service that is provided by that organization for, the residents of our town. And, I think that building, it's the first time, I believe, that it's had any real work done on it since the early 1950s. And they've proven to be a very effective and very frugal organization, and we were pleased to provide that support. Any other comments?
They've indicated that money will be used for all their furnishings. They will take care of what they needed for
Very
furnishings.
good,
So that's where they will put it.
The gentleman that the building was named for passed away
Oh, did
yesterday.
he?
Yeah.
Oh,
And so, him being able to attend that event was probably the best gift that you could have given him, his family.
well, it was a very moving thing to be there with them that day. Okay, any further discussion or comment? Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. And next, we have consideration of an appropriation of funding for the St. Patrick Day celebration to be held at the Virginia Ballroom. Mr. Kelly, last time here.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, this too was discussed at the last work session, and I believe there is a St. Patrick's Day celebration that is being worked upon. I think Mr. Humphreys, perhaps Ms. Lowe, and the director of the center are directly involved in putting this program forward.
Susie Buckner.
And Susie Buckner. And I believe at the last work session, the council indicated a willingness to appropriate $750 to go toward the sponsorship of this celebration at the Virginia Ballroom.
I'll entertain a motion to that effect.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to entertain or to provide an allocation of $750 for the Virginia Ballroom, also which is part of the Abingdon Senior Citizens Program, to put on a St. Patrick's Day celebration. A lot of good things happening in town around St. Patrick's Day, and we're very pleased to see that. Any comments, discussion? Hearing none, roll call, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphreys?
Aye.
Mr. Barry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye, thank you, and we'll look forward to that. Okay, under unfinished business, we have an update on the Country Club Stormwater Management Project. Mr. Dew?
I find myself up here in unfinished business again.
Yeah, but we're not going to beat you.
Not a place I'd like to be,
Good
but
gracious, you could be here for the next hour.
I know. Thank you. Mr. Mayor, members of council, we'll start with the update on the Country Club project. I just have in the last few days received the last articles or items of federal paperwork that were required to put into the bid documents, since we are receiving federal funds for this project. So my intention is still to bid this project this month and try to present it to you on the April 1st meeting, I think is the date, the correct date. It's a tight window, but that's still my intention right now. I have been meeting, I had a few meetings this past month, or in February, with utility owners. There are underground utilities in that subdivision, as I think everybody's aware. So we'll be dealing with that during the construction phase, but that's where I stand right now.
All right, so again, if I heard you correctly, you would be looking to award the bid in April?
That's what I'm intending to do. Now, I've repeatedly been overly optimistic on some dates, but this is what, I can always, that's my goal.
Well, very good, sir. We'll look forward to having that on the April agenda and hope that all of that will come to pass. And anybody have any questions about that project at the moment? Hearing none, I'll let you tell us about the updates on the White's Mill Court Hill Drive project, which, for those that ask the question, how hard is it to build a sidewalk? Now, you're going to tell us.
Well, if anybody has several days, I'll be glad to talk with them about it. But speaking of being repeatedly overly optimistic, but this one has dragged on much longer than I'd hoped. But we are making good progress on the easements. In the last couple of weeks since we had our public meeting at the senior center, in another attempt to make contact with the property owners who will be affected by the construction, we have been able to get I think it's 5 or 6 additional easements signed since then. I met with a property owner today and got some positive feedback and hoping to get another one by the end of this week. And we are continuing to schedule one-on-one meetings with the property owners to try to get the easements out of the way. To remind everybody, that is the last remaining step we have before being able to start construction on that project. So I'm hesitant. If you ask me, I'll try to tell you, but I'm hesitant to throw a date out there to expect construction to begin. It's just after we can get these remaining easements done. I'm hoping. I'm pushing every chance I get.
Ballparkish, how many do you have? Just
Remaining.
Remaining, we don't have signatures still probably on, I think, about 18, but a lot of those are in possession, and we have met and talked with these folks, so I'm hoping that that's just a matter of time before they sign those over.
We had 2 additional ones come in today, so.
Mm-hmm.
The You know what I thought about though? That one, you're thinking it's two churches. It's not. The church just owns two lots.
Well, that would
The
be
First Church of
helpful
God.
if that's the case. That would be helpful.
Other questions on that topic? And how are things coming along on trestle number 7 on the Virginia Creeper Trail?
This one, I feel better about. That's the design engineer has given me a date of this coming Monday to have all the documents, bid documents. So I'm going to verify that will happen, and if so, I plan on advertising Sunday. And again, it's a fairly short window, but I would like to try to, if there's not too much of an outcry or difficulty with the prospective bidders, I'd like to try to have that bid before the council meeting in April as well.
And the landowners or adjoining landowners, they're all content with everything?
They are, I met with them about a revised crossing location, and they were much happier after we met with them initially and discussed that and made a modification to the plans. They were much happier with this location. I'll throw out that E word. We still need to nail down the final easement with them, but we are just dealing with one property owner for this easement, and I'm encouraged by it.
Okay, very good.
There was mention that we all might go over there, out there at one time to meet with them. That would be helpful.
Well, they, they certainly made that offer. I think everyone was aware
They
of it.
suggested that offer, or they didn't make it, they actually encouraged that.
Right.
And if you think at some point that would be desirable, please advise us so.
Well, obviously the more all of you see it on the ground, or if that helps you envision it, I certainly would be more than happy to set that up. And I mean, if there was an acceptable date, or it's not that far away, if there's individual times that work out, I'd be more than happy to go out there and show everybody the plans and some of the layout that's already been done on the near the trestle site.
All righty, we'll ponder that a little bit here and see what might be appropriate. Very good, sir. I thank you. And
Thank you.
We'll let you take a rest here. And Mr. Jackson, if you could bring us up to date on the progress on the Urban Pathway Project.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, members of council. Last week, Mr. Dew and I met with VDOT officials at the Bristol office to discuss the VDOT pre-scoping meeting, which is a requirement after receiving funds from VDOT or receiving the award. You have to have a VDOT pre-scoping meeting, sometimes referred to as a kickoff meeting. We met with 3 of their officials. Tamara Pritchard is their project manager. She's in charge of all the paperwork that goes within the project that we're talking about, the urban path. They discussed with us several items that we were aware of that we just wanted to update you all on. One, the RFP. They have our RFP and are running it through their civil rights division right now. We'll get that this week, they indicated. So when we get that, we hope to have it in the paper on Sunday, so we can go ahead and get the consultant bid out to bid for consultant services for design. After that, we have 3 phases: engineering, right-of-way and utilities, and then the final one being construction. They did ask that we back up and have a public hearing. We didn't have a public hearing, but we did have a resolution from the council which satisfied the need for the application, but they asked that we do a public hearing just to satisfy any future discussions within the public, and to just further notify the public that the process is going on. And then when we have the RFP ready for consultants, or have the consultants ready, after that time, they expect 50% of the design process to be done, and for us to turn that in. They asked that we do phase 1 and phase 2 environmental together. It'd be cheaper for us, and would get the entire project done. Phase 1 would be from Muster Grounds to roughly Tanner Street. Phase 2 would be from Tanner on to the Coombs Center. The town will do the tracking of Davis-Bacon wages and other labor standards. They commented that Sean Taylor's doing a terrific job with the train station, that it's one of the best projects they've had to work through with the local government. They're actually requesting other groups to do some of the things that Sean's done in terms of turning in his drawdowns for funding requests and his labor standards. He turns all that in together in a big packet, and they're actually using that as a model to everyone else to turn that in. So that was very promising, and it gave Sean another project. John and I decided to give him this one, so we'll just pass the buck. But we'll get all this done. Hopefully we can advertise for the consultant on Sunday and move forward. I will say this: environmental will take up to 3 months, so that will be a delay. But if we do it all at one time, we won't have to do it later on either. So.
Okay. And while you're there, you and I attended a meeting about the columbarium. Any comments you'd like to make about their progress?
Have you seen the
No.
latest design? Okay. Yes, the mayor and I attended a meeting of the columbarium committee for the Sinking Spring Cemetery last Monday. It's myself, the mayor, David Winship, who's the chairman of that subcommittee, and Graham Landscape Architecture, Quinn Crockwell, Nathan Brown, and the owner, Jay Graham, from Annapolis, Maryland. They met with us to discuss some ideas. We walked the site after we threw around ideas of what everyone wanted to see. I left Kitty Henniger out. She was there. Threw around ideas of what everyone kind of wanted to see the future of Sinking Spring Cemetery in terms of adding space. We talked about everything from the landscaping of the place to it being a destination in more ways than one. People using it as a sort of a historic research opportunity, and it very well likely is one of our most visited historic sites. On I guess Friday was when I saw it. David Winship saw the concept plans on Thursday, and I saw them on Friday morning. They have 3 sketches that they're kind of morphing into one to present to the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee and then ultimately to council. They took a lot of the themes of what's there already, the limestone, the different statuettes and symbology in the cemetery, and are using that to kind of as the mayor, when I asked his vision, he said he gave a 1,000-year plan, which isn't unreasonable in terms of a cemetery. They took that and ran with it, and they have produced a plan that will actually do that. Could offer up to 6,000 more burials in the form of cremains. As many as 6,000. It could certainly be less. But also memorial space and just more of a park feel. Many cemeteries are a sacred space, public space for many cities, and that's kind of what their design shows. And you all should be seeing that in April.
Well, very good, and I'll look forward to seeing it, I hope, before then. But they did have some interesting comments about the fact of designing, among other things, sacred space, and really brought some good ideas to how we manage that property, in the future. And I must confess that my initial thought was limited to the columbarium, but they brought very good ideas to the table, and I was real pleased with that. Anybody got any questions, Mr. Jackson, on either one of those topics at the present time? Thank you very much. Mr. Kelly, one more time for you. Update on the feasibility study of the Conference Center Hotel.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, John Lagarde, the chairman of the EDA, had submitted a small brief report to me that indicates that our consultant has now spoken with upwards of 25 individuals, had some significant interviews with those folks. They're in the process of obtaining survey data at the current time, which is expected to be about a 2 to 3 week process, and they are actually beginning to compile the report now. John indicated that both Kevin Costello and Jim Cowart had been highly involved and extremely helpful in getting information to the EDA, as had Christy Parker, who had provided information about some of the larger businesses that are outside the town limits in the county. So I would anticipate, based on John's report, that we should be looking at a presentation sometime if not next month, probably the following month.
Very good, sir. Pleased to hear that is moving forward. One more, Mr. Jim Smith, we've let you off this evening, and but no. You know, up until now, we've let you off. But if you could give us a brief update on the West End Interceptor project. I noticed this evening when I came home that the folks were working behind Walgreens, which suggested that progress was being made.
Mayor Morgan, members of Town Council, you're correct. The project is about completed. We will probably set or may have set the last manhole this afternoon at the Walgreens site, and a few more feet of pipe needed to be installed. And once that's done, it'll be substantially complete. Expect that to be done this Thursday. And sometime this week, I'll be completing a walkthrough on the project to see what needs to be done. The contractor is expected to return later on this spring to do some cleanup work and things like that. There will be some asphalt that needs to be dressed up and curbs installed and things like that. We'll take care of those.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Smith regarding this matter? I'll ask one question while I have you and Mr. Dew here. I had a citizen ask me if water line replacement was going to be taking place over in Country Club Estates. Is anything like that going to happen over there?
There will be some relocations done, but I'm not.
Okay, but you know, not the town major water line replacement that we've had so far.
I'm not aware
of anything.
That's
I think
fine.
we're pretty much complete with that. Now, the Service Authority will be doing a job along that line. They'll be doing a job on Green Springs Road, starting in the pretty near future. It's going to run essentially Con Street from near Main all the way down, almost to Cummings Street, that whole section there. So it'll be busy and disruption of traffic, but a very important project. We're going to team up with them to replace an aged and poor condition storm drain in that same area while they're in there.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Any other questions of them? That brings us to matters not on the agenda. I actually have one, and that is that at our previous meeting, we'd had scheduled as an agenda topic the idea of how we can promote and increase the participation in our town elections, which will be held a year from this coming May. And the last meeting or two, we've had a very full agenda, but I think we've made a commitment that this is not a topic to be forgotten about. Mr. Kelly, I know you have a couple of things you're working on, but I would also propose that as a council, and I'll ask you briefly to comment about what you're involved with, but also I would propose as a council that we go ahead and make a commitment to have this on, say, the July meeting schedule. That way we're through the budget, but we still have, you know, a good amount of time to work on that. Is that agreeable? Okay, Mr. Kelly, would you talk about the your organization's efforts, that what you're going to be involved in and how the council might be involved with it?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, members of the public, about a year ago, the General Assembly adopted legislation that declared the first week of April to be Local Government Education Week. The Virginia Local Government Managers Association, which I am a member and an officer of that organization, has been preparing a program to go into the school systems within each locality and educate school kids on what local government does. Right now, you could probably go into the school system, you can find everything that's written about local government in a paragraph or less hidden in some textbook. But we've done some extensive work. We have a 90-minute video that we have put together that includes a lot, about 4 local government managers from around the state. We have a significant volume of materials to give out. We have booklets that relate to the creation of the council manager form of government, which took place, a lot of people don't realize this, but which actually took place in the state of Virginia in Stanton back in Woodrow Wilson's day. And it is a significant step in educating the youth. So I will be meeting with the school superintendent on Wednesday of this week to try to line up some dates in that first week of April when we can get into the school system. Now, obviously, we're in the town of Abingdon. I would like to incorporate council members and some of the key staff folks from Abingdon to, assuming we're granted admission into the school systems, to teach these children a little bit about what each of you all do and what I do and what the town staff does, and also educate them on the election process and how that, our election occurs in May, the county election occurs in November, things like that. I think the timing, at least in terms of what we're doing, we do not have an election this year, but next year we would have an election in May, unless that were to be changed to a November date. But the timing of this was done for two reasons: to get the first week of April declared as local government week. It was because most of the localities in the state had May elections, and also because the council manager form of government, first city manager, was hired on April 1st, and I forget, it's over 100 years, right around 100 years ago. Yeah. So there was some significance in picking that date, but I think the timing is very good. And in addition to that, Mr. Mayor, we'll be working on other ways to send out information to the public on how we can publicize when the elections are.
And I'm sure that come May, a year from now, there will be at least somewhere between 4 and 7 people probably going door to door reminding folks that there will be an election in this town at that time. Okay, so again, we would have this on the July agenda, that we would have a basic plan for how we're going to proceed, and then there will be, hopefully, you're going to be starting the beginning of an ongoing process of educating the our school children, high school aged citizens about the importance of local election. And there's also the scouting group. I know in the past I've taught citizenship in the community, and it was never as exciting as citizenship in the nation or the world as I thought at that time, but I've come to have a different perspective on it. Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes,
I might
sir.
also add that we did gain intellectual ownership privileges to the DVD that we did from Virginia Tech. So it is actually something that we can actually put on our website
Okay.
if necessary. It's 90 minutes. You might not want to sit and watch 90 minutes of people talking about local government, but at the same time, if you have a strong interest in it, you might.
All right, very good. Any other comments regarding this topic?
1908.
1908, okay.
Ashburner,
All righty.
Charles Ashburner.
Very good. Now, again, we are at the point in our agenda of matters not on the agenda. If there is anyone present with us at this evening that wishes to come forward and address the council, they can do so at the present
Can I
time.
stand back here? The only thing
You bet.
I want to say is, it's about Betty.
Yes.
And we all want to miss her very, very much. Betty was the first one that introduced our family, and she had this big celebration in my house. She had open house. She invited the hills on the other side of the mountain. I always say on the other side of the mountain, but Taylor's Hill was one of the people that came, and then she invited all the folks from Kings Mountain. So that was the beginning of Betty, and that's how I began to learn about Abingdon. Well, Betty knew everything about Abingdon.
Yes, she did.
So she taught me a lot about the people who were in Abingdon, and if I came to the town council, she said, "Now, Carolyn, I want you to call me as soon as you get back. Let me know what went on with the town council." Those were just some of the things that she kept me excited about, and she was excited about what goes on in Abingdon and around there. just knowing her and knowing as many things as she knew about the people.
Yeah.
She told me many, many stories. So I have lots of stories that in my heart about her. And of course, she tried to take care of my family, me, whatever, you know, trying to make things the way that she thought they should be. And I agreed with her on a lot of things because it was good things. It wasn't nothing bad, you know. And so I said, I looked tonight, I wanted to look, tried to whisper at Lena because she was always there. And I do want to say that one of the things she did talk about, and I'm sorry that she didn't get to see, and that was the dedication about Lena Moore. She talked very much about that. So that was one thing, the last thing that she really talked about the part. And is that, when is that dedicated? Because she talked like it's going to be soon.
Probably, we went ahead and posted signs and, up in the park to go ahead and get the name because it's coming into the winter months, but we're probably looking at setting that to be somewhere in the first part of April. And we'll have that.
She was looking forward to that, and she was glad it happened, going to happen. So I just wanted to let you know about how we were able to fuss at each other and get mad at each other, and love each other, and care about one another, and care about the town. And what was going on.
And thank you. And Mr. John Dew, he and Betty were just like that. Any number of times, she did not hesitate to help him see the direction that her neighborhood needed to
I will say,
to
if
take.
I could say, everybody knows how sweet she was. Beautiful lady, small in stature, but the very first time I spoke to her, it was at a council meeting here, and she asked me to do something for her. And I said, well, I'll try. I'll look into it and I'll try. And she said, well, if you don't, I'm going to chop your head off and grind it into tiny little pieces.
Yeah, she did. And
And we actually shared a birthday.
oh, I didn't.
We had a good connection.
Well, very good. Well, she will be missed, and we certainly wish to acknowledge the contribution she's made to the life of this community. Is there anyone else who wishes to address this? Yes, sir. Please come forward.
Yes, sir.
I would ask that you identify yourself for the record. I won't make you come up here, but
That's okay. I can talk loud enough, I guess. My name is Bob Trevorrow, and I live in Abingdon. I just moved here in December. I read in the local paper that there's interest on the part of many communities, Abington included, interest in regional passenger rail service. I wondered if the council can give me or us any information on the status of that.
I can perhaps give you a little bit of it. One of our previous mayors and vice mayor, Dr. French Moore, for many years was involved in the effort to bring passenger rail to this part of the world. And remind me the name of the organization.
Trans-Dominion
Trans-Virginia Express. And it seems to be getting a little bit closer all the time. But we maintain active membership in that organization. And there is another group called Rail Solutions that has also worked on trying to increase rail traffic to this part of the world. I know that the Virginia General Assembly has approved funding this year that will hopefully bring passenger rail service to Roanoke, where the state ends. But we hope that we'll live to see it down here where the state of Virginia actually begins. But there is an increasing interest in that. Our council, on a number of occasions, has passed resolutions, supporting that. When we visit with our legislators in Richmond each year, we try to talk with them about the need for rail traffic or rail service down here. My wife and I took the train from Lynchburg to Philadelphia this last year. It was great. Worked so well, and I know that passenger rail service down here would be a tremendous boost to our tourism efforts, in addition to the benefits it would have of reducing traffic on the interstate. We're keenly interested in that, but regrettably, it's a complicated process involving, funding to make a variety of rail improvements between here and Roanoke and so forth along the way. And, and then the cooperation of Norfolk Southern and a variety of other things. But we're going to have a first-class passenger station here before you know it. And I hope one of these days that we'll be able to walk down to that station from my house. You can walk down to it and catch a train. And it'll be a great thing. We certainly are going to do what we can to encourage that.
I applaud that. I mean, the price of gasoline keeps going up, and we have no alternatives.
No, we don't. And, and it's, again, the service that we have seen from Lynchburg, it far exceeded, the expectations of the state on day one, and has continued to be very fully utilized from Lynchburg onward. You have to make reservations well in advance to book out of Lynchburg to go forward, and I'm sure the same thing will be true in Roanoke. They found that the bus that is run, the shuttle bus from Roanoke to Lynchburg is just about full every day, when they utilize that service. And I'm confident that if we have it, or when we have it down here, that service is going to be utilized fully as well. But thank you for your interest in that, and we encourage you to not be shy about telling your state representatives and your federal representatives that this is important to the future of our community. Anybody else? Okay.
Right, if you're a train buff, there's an excursion this weekend from Bristol to Radford and back.
Yes, well, I know.
All right. Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Go ahead, sir. Okay. Anybody else wish to address the council? Okay. All right. That brings us to a couple of an appointment we had available this evening on the Board of Zoning Appeals. It was the appointment of a member to the board to fill the expired term of Mr. Campbell, who's not eligible for reappointment under our term limitations. I'll entertain a motion here at the present time. I think there may be one floating around out there.
Are you talking?
Yes, ma'am. I'm talking to you.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to move that we put this off until the April board meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second to delay this appointment until the April board meeting. Is there any reason, Mr. Jackson, you're aware of why we couldn't do that? Okay. All right. Any discussion? Hearing none. Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries? Let's see, Mr. Berry?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, and that brings us to council member reports. Mr. Humphries, would you like to begin? Oh, okay. Mrs. Lowe?
Not really. We have lots of good things going on. I say we because I'm on the board of the senior center. There's lots of good things happening. I am not on the committee for St. Patrick's Day. I can't take credit for that. That is Rick and Susie and Davina. But the board has taken some very positive actions this last meeting as far as the operations, policies, and finances of the center, and hopefully we're on the right track. The marketing committee and the full board at Heartwood are meeting again next month. They are very busy, and they're keeping us busy, aren't they, Kevin? So, yeah. so they almost are as long as this, aren't they? So we're, the progress is being made. It doesn't feel like it sometimes, but it is.
All right. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay, Mr. Howard. Mr. Berry?
Just one thing, Mr. Mayor, spoke to, you probably all read that they're going to raise our taxes in Virginia to help fund transportation, and part of that, Mr. Mayor, is actually rail, so that's a good piece. Just want to let you know, I spoke to two of our legislators from our area, and they cut a bargain with the rest of the General Assembly to keep the transportation funding plan for Southwest Virginia stable for 10 years. And then after that, it's on the table. They wanted to reduce the formula based on population, as we're losing population compared to Northern Virginia and Tidewater and so forth. So some of them who voted for a tax increase did so to protect our funding. So politics is a trade-off. I guess it's a lesson we could teach our kids in school. But I just want to give you all that FYI, that if you wonder that's part of what went on in Richmond and something to ponder anyway.
Very good. Mr. Humphries?
You know, I guess in probably as Ms. Lee stated, you know how Betty, you have to yell and scream and you love each other, and that's part of being a community, part of being a town, part of being a council. And I just wanted to read this statement out, and this is and because I'm troubled, and I'm very troubled that we've embraced the process that data and facts are not timely and are unimportant. It is very liberating, though, that we are no longer encumbered by the thought process. I will be glad to continually in the future remind council that when we require and think that facts and data are in order to take appropriate action, that they have proved today they are not. They have proved tonight that they are not. Ignorance is truly bliss, and shame on us. Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes?
I would just ask if we can get a copy of the study that Chief Sullivan alluded to earlier from 5 years ago. It was actually one of the first things I saw related to traffic, and that would be good for all of us to talking about data. It is out there.
Too late now.
No, it is out there, and I remember it. And but I think it.
Well, current helps. Current helps a lot.
Okay.
Just all right.
All righty, very good. Anybody else? I've got a couple of announcements that I'd like to point out to you. There is a lot going on. On March the 7th, William King, we have Ted Olson, Professor of Appalachian Studies, ETSU, will give a lecture and a musical performance on March the 7th through the 9th. We have the We Cycle It Children's Consignment Sale at Woodland Hills Christian Church. The 15th, March 15th, the Shamrock 4-miler will be presented by Johnston Memorial Hospital and Crest Point Health. NASCAR race is coming up the 15th through the 17th. The 16th, the Farmers Market, Winter Market will be open, and local artisans and crafters and so forth will be available. March 17th will be the Heartwood St. Patrick's Day celebration, Sunday gospel brunch, and remind me now, what day are things at the senior center? 17th, okay?
16th.
All right. We don't have you there, but I didn't forget you. That'll be on the 16th. A lot of good things happening that weekend. March the 20th through the 21st, council work session meetings. The 23rd, Coombs Recreation Center Easter egg hunt. Boy,
And
that's early.
Mr. Mayor, I
Yes,
would like
ma'am.
to make a correction to that.
Okay.
I understand that has been, the Easter egg hunt has been moved to March the 30th
Okay.
instead of the 23rd, so there is a correction to that.
Okay, March 23rd, Southwest Virginia Dancing with the Stars. March 27th and 28th, council budget work session meetings. And April 1st, the council work session and regular meetings. That will also be the 40th anniversary of Ed and Helen Morgan. And I would also point out that the Barter Theater has a great, really funny play going on at the moment, which is the I'll Never Go Hungry Again. It's been extended and shifted to the main theater, where it will run up through April. If you haven't seen it, it's a lot of fun, and they've really done a good job with that. Anybody else? Thank you. We are adjourned. Okay.